Welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. I'm your host, Hostin Clay, and I got a great episode for you today. And I'm going to jump right into this one today. All right. A lot of times as men, we hear women talking about brothers who kind of like spiritually abuse women, right? That they don't allow women to kind of have some sort of a spiritual autonomy, if you will. And so we're going to talk today about a couple of ways brothers can really be in a position of uniting with their spouse upon religious beliefs, practices, and thoughts, right? So I was, how this got started, I was dealing with a couple who have been in various different spots as far as religiously concerned. And say they had various different modes of operation that they kind of went through as far as their beliefs, as far as religions, as far as practices and things of that nature there, where the husband has kind of gotten a little perturbed with the wife because she's not keeping up what he think is spiritual growth. And the wife is kind of like, well, I've been through various different modes of operation. It's kind of hard to keep up with him, right? And so they have this separation that's going on between them because they are not really connected. They're not seeing eye to eye. Now, that's not the only problem that they have, but I just want to kind of highlight this problem here, this issue here for this segment. And they got various different things going on, but that's not the topic for today, right? And so one of the things that I really believe, if as men, if we can kind of get this thought going and practicing, not dictating religious philosophy or religious thoughts or religious belief to our spouse or even to our family at whole, but trying to be in a position of exercising these four areas, right? And that might then bring about a better cohesion from a religious standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, right? So let's dive into some of these four. First, having an understanding of religious practice. What does practice look like? And first, let me also say this, that some of these things are going to actually weave within each other. It's a nice little tapestry, if you will. And I know I use that word. It's the first time I'm kind of using that word, right? And so this tapestry, if you will, how it weaves in together. All of it is really a part of one unit. But there's four different things, but it's really a part of four different things that just weaves in together. So that first one is going to be practice. If you and your spouse can get together on practice, and what I mean by practice, if you're praying together, right, and you're doing other things spiritually together. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting a couple down in Florida, right? And it was a beautiful experience, right? I was down in Amelia, Florida, right on the island down there. And they was down there, and each morning they would wake up and they were reading Quran together, right? And it was beautiful because I pray, I'm up and I'm listening to them. They're in their room and they're taking turns reading to one another, right? And they did this every morning, right? And so like the second or third day that I was there, I kind of asked, hey, is this something kind of a practice that y'all do every morning, right? It's like, yeah, and it gets their day started on a right note. And of course, they were reading from the English translation. Okay, that's what it was. It is what it is, right? But they would get up every morning and read aloud, right? It's not just they read it, they're reading aloud to one another, and it's only them two, right? And I thought that was a beautiful practice, right, for them, right? And many of us would probably have various different practices. Some of us, pray together. Some of us go to services together, like you might go into Friday prayer service, or you go into a study circle together, or you even having a study circle at your home, right? This is a practice that, if you were in a position, I know some people who actually, some women who felt like their man was kind of abusive with it, and then they be sucking their teeth or going all these type of things here. But that was more about the relationship than about the religious practice. It just got spilled over to the religious practice, right? But that is a beautiful thing if you can corral your family, your wife, you have the shared experience of some type of act of worship together that you do consistently, right? We're talking about this grounded masculinity, and one of those principles for grounded masculinity was consistency, right? If you are then able to be consistent, right, you're capable, right? You're congruent, you're balanced with it, you're having, your comprehension is of it as well. You're balanced, you're consistent, you're making connections with your family, and then you're showing a particular care, right? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. And so in this practice, you have a person or two people, a couple who are bound together based upon spiritual growth, right? And then this next one is having some open dialogue, right? It might be that my wife may understand something a little more than I do. And we can kind of bounce off our thoughts about particular things, particular concepts, particular principles from a spiritual standpoint, right? We can be in a position of I'm listening to her, she's listening to me. I don't have all the answers, right? She's trying to enlighten me about something that she may be aware of, or she might come to some type of understanding about. And then that only helps me enhance my spiritual practice, because if I'm open-minded and I'm allowing for open conversation to take place, I'm not just dictating the terms of spirituality and religion, right? If I'm not just dictating the terms, then what can take place is that we can have a fuller relationship. And this is going to connect into this last one. But thirdly, having some type of service that you guys do together, meaning I know some couples who feed the homeless together. They find satisfaction in feeding the homeless together, or they put their coins together and give some type of sadaqah to a needy family, or something that they do together, right? Some act of service that they do together. It's just not she taking the money and I'm going to go give this to whoever, right? They come up with an agreed upon situation, agreed upon service that they would like to do with one another, and then go out and make it happen, right? Some people like giving, some people like going to services, some people like feeding the hungry, feeding the homeless. There's a lot of different things that you can come up with, and you can have that conversation with your wife. And then, or even wives, if you're watching this podcast, you can have that conversation with your husband, and then actually elicit him into getting involved this way, right? To continue to try to make that connection. And last but not least, and brothers, I really want you to hear this clearly. Allowing your wife to grow in her space and based upon her terms, right? She may not get it like you get it, right? Now, there obviously the fundamentals, right? The baseline things will always have to be met. You know, if you're Muslim, you know, you need to be praying 5 times a day. You need to pray through the month of Ramadan. I mean, fast through the month of Ramadan. You know, you need to make sure that, you know, your statement of your witness, your testimony, that there's no God worthy of worship but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger is the same. And of course, you know, making it to the pilgrimage or the Hajj, right, once in a lifetime if you're capable. Those things are going to always be the same. Those things are just non-negotiables, right? But her increase in information, her increase in knowledge and education of religious practices and religious principles and things of the nature there may not be where you are. She, or hey, real talk, she might even be eclipsing you, right? But there has to be some sort of respect, if you will, of each individual's growth and no demonizing or, you know, putting down another person's or your woman's movement when it comes to spirituality and religion, right? Because at this point, you will then continue to alienate her. And I know some people I've seen and being in premarital situations where I've been counseling premarital or counseling premarital course, and or couples that have came to me after getting married. One of the things that I've heard mostly from a lot of women is, well, I was this particular way when he met me. I had this religious understanding when he met me, and he told me that it was okay. But then he got me, and then he started trying to change me, right? And I already told him this is, you know, how I practice, this is what I do, this is what I think, this is how I move. And he said, oh, no, that's all right. But what it really came out to be was he was saying it was all right because he felt like once he got her, he was going to change her, right? That she was going to get with him, and all of a sudden she was just going to melt and whatever you say, daddy, you know what I mean, type of joint. And next thing you know, it didn't work that way. And he kind of pissed because she didn't fall into it the way he thought she was supposed to fall into it, right? Well, one of the things that probably take place is that they probably went about doing it wrong in the first place and sharing the information, right? The open dialogue, which was number two, was not being presented. And when we started talking about open dialogue, you know, being able to present, you know, your proofs and evidence about things that you were talking about. And then just laying it there and letting them understand, hey, jump on that for a little bit. You know, think about that for a minute, right? And so then just explaining why you may be a particular way or thinking a particular way, and this is why you're doing this, right? Versus trying to make her then follow along what it is that you're talking about, right? Now, I do understand that each man is the leader of his house, and he should be in a position of making sure that his family is on proper guidance. No doubt about that, right? There's no doubt about that. We're not even going to question that. But he also has to have the wisdom and learning how to share the information. You didn't hear me say teach, right? Share this information in order to then bring about a better understanding of what he would like to see or the position he would like to see his house move in, his wife move in, how she teach the children, and all these things here. What is it that he is trying to share versus the idea of barking a order of do this, and don't do that without an explanation, right? We live in a day and time that an explanation is important. I won't even say that time's gone past where explanations wasn't important, because we have, as prophets and messengers who've came before us, gave clear explanation to the message that they were bringing. So how we're not trying to do it is baffling to me, right? We're not taking that same opportunity, those same examples, and doing something with it in order to bring about the groundedness within our home, because we're not grounded in a proper way. So I want you guys to think about what it is that we talked about today. I want, if you can, share your comments, your thoughts on this post, about this podcast. Definitely all conversations and communications is welcome. Please, no rudeness or no disrespect, because I won't get rid of it, but I'll hide it. Believe me now, I will hide it. I won't delete you, but I will hide it, right? And I want everybody to have a real clear conversation about how we can make this connection spiritually and how we can do something better. Now, of course, my idea in this podcast, because I'm going to be looking at 6 areas of growth over the following weeks. That's going to be spiritually, intellectually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and socially, right? I've already talked something about the emotional when we talked about emotional deregulation and lack of impulse control. But we're going to talk over these 6 areas, some of the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and threats that are there, and how we can do something better with it in order to be grounded with those 5 principles, those 5 C's that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna make this real quick and make it real short. I definitely would love to hear your comments and your concerns, and let's teach each other and let's help each other be better. All right, you can catch this podcast again on Facebook and YouTube at the Get Made Podcast. Please subscribe to that channel. And we are broadcasting every Monday at 7 p.m. Don't forget. All right, share this, grab those notifications, and lock in. All right, take care.